Log Horizon, Volume 1, Chapter 2, Part 4. A few days after Akatsuki joined the team, their area of operations gradually shifted to the field zone near Akiba. There were several reasons for doing this. One of them was the difficulty level of the battles they faced in the Archive Tower Forest. The basic structure and tactics of battles followed that of Elder Tales faithfully, but there were major differences in terms of fighting techniques and skills. Elements that were not important when playing the game, like the angle you swung the sword or raised your shield, the terrain around your feet, and how to get into position. There were now many more details to consider when fighting. Teamwork and field of vision were also major concerns, and most importantly, the mental obstacle of fear was hard to break through. Shiroe's first thought when practicing outside with Naotsugu was, this is going to be hard. But after going through several field trips, his view changed into, this is harder than I imagined. Since Akatsuki was a frontline melee class, it would be better for her to get used to this early. They were in a party for now, but they didn't know how long this alliance would last, so all of them agreed that they should get used to the basics of fighting during their time together. Another thing was the existence of the Crescent Moon Alliance. After their initial visit, they dropped by the guild quite often to exchange information. Unlike Shiroe's party, Crescent Moon Alliance had some production players. Although Shiroe had a production subclass as a high-level scribe, Crescent Moon Alliance had a greater variety of craftsmen. They knew more people in the city and had better efficiency in collecting information than Shiroe's group. Since they were trading information, it would be better to investigate the field zones and train at the same time. This was the other reason. To ensure their minimum level of safety, there were also other people in Akiba who were taking action like Shiroe's group. But most of the people in Akiba were just spending their days idling around, unable to accept this new reality even after a week had passed. There might be someone, maybe a god or some game masters who would save them. The players held on to this hope. If they do not hang on to this hope, their hearts might just crumble. Shiroe could empathize with them, but he was not optimistic enough to believe in this hope. If this was just a prank and help did arrive, that would be great, and Shiroe would be relieved. His life in college may not have been that wonderful, but it was the world he was familiar with and grew up in, and he definitely wanted to return. Even if this was an event orchestrated by the officials, it was an undeniable fact that they could be trapped here forever. Someone who was extremely cautious would not bet on the possibility of rescue and live his days so fruitlessly. Akiba was the biggest server in Japan and the starting city for new players. The major cities might differ slightly, but the zones surrounding them only had low-level monsters, a safe area suitable for beginners to explore. Shiroe decided to investigate each of these zones and gradually work their way up to high-level areas. If you just considered their levels, Shiroe, Naotsugu, and Akatsuki were all level 90. Even if they took a few hits in the low-level zones, they would not suffer much damage. The enemies would not attack recklessly once they understood how powerful Shiroe's group was. In this sense, it was possible to avoid battles, but Shiroe's group wanted to fight all kinds of monsters whenever possible. The enemy's attacks were not damaging, but they would still involuntarily flinch when facing the strikes of various monsters. Their harsh breathing, the suffocating stench of blood, and their malicious intent definitely couldn't be felt through your computer screen. Even if they were low-level monsters, the fear of battle was enough to make Shiroe's group back away. They were low-level foes that wouldn't yield any experience, but Shiroe's party still fought them several times to study the way to handle fighting and to get used to the feeling of battle. Their battle formation usually had Naotsugu take the lead. When Naotsugu charged within the striking distance of the enemies, it signaled the beginning of the fight. The Guardian Naotsugu used his heavy armor and shield techniques to fend off the monster's attacks. Taunting Shout was one of the basic skills of Guardians with the effect of enraging the enemies. The taunted monsters would then focus on Naotsugu, keeping Shiroe and Akatsuki safe from attacks. As they expected, it was hard to check their status screen when fighting fiercely on the front lines. When Elder Tales was just a game, you just needed to select a monster to attack, and your character would keep attacking it. The character would also evade the enemy's blows with a fixed rate, so there was no need to worry about parrying the attack with your sword or blocking with your shield. You just needed to click the skill button to activate it. But you needed to keep your eyes on the movements of the enemy in front of you when fighting in this alternate world, and keep attacking with your weapon repeatedly. Your vision would narrow when facing the approaching monsters, and you wouldn't be able to see the movements of all the enemies. Shiroe's group designed several formations and battle codes after several discussions. Their conclusion was to let Shiroe, who was away from the front lines, to monitor the whole battlefield and give instructions, which was the safest bet. Shiroe needed to support with magic while keeping abreast of the surrounding situations and his allies' status. Most of the Enchanter's spells were mediocre. Keen Edge was one of the few spells Enchanters could cast that was very helpful. It increased an ally's weapon attack by 30% for a few hours. There was no need to recast it during battles. There were other spells that could be used, but their usage was largely dependent on the situation. Shiroe's main duty was to watch the surroundings and manage his allies' status. Akatsuki had grown familiar to Shiroe and Naotsugu as teammates after many practice sessions. Assassins were one of the 3 weapon attack classes, and had the highest attack power among the 12 classes. They differed from the warrior classes, which were proficient in intercepting the enemy's attacks on the front line. Contrary to that, weapon attack classes did not have their toughness and defense, or the skills to lure enemies. Simply put, the duty of the weapon attack class was to finish off the enemies lured by the warrior classes. Among the 3, assassins specialized in killing off enemies speedily. The assassination skill used by assassins could deal almost 10,000 damage in an instant. Akatsuki dashed agilely through the battlefield. Her petite body had amazing speed. You would have trouble tracking her movements as she rushed towards the enemies. This was Hidewalk, a skill of the assassins, allowing them to traverse to their opponent's blind spot and increase the success rate of their next attack. Her running figure with her black hair flowing behind her was as smooth as a liquid. So beautiful it was mesmerizing. Naotsugu blocked the fangs of the enemy with his shield and jumped back with a flow. Akatsuki would swing her blade with a haste, striking their flanks to stop further attacks on Naotsugu. The cooperation of the front and rear guards was a tactic that oversaw the whole battlefield. The teamwork of 2 vanguards was directly related to the fight itself. This was why there was a need to repeatedly fight enemies, so they would know each other's modus operandi by instinct. Shiroe, on the other hand, was in charge of confirming their status, repositioning them to keep the enemies off balance. He would occasionally cast enchanter spells to trick or limit the movements of the enemies, moving the battle to their advantage. After a week of practice, Shiroe's team was able to handle level 50 enemies.
To read along with Log Horizon, or to read any other fine light novels, go to Baka-Tsuki.org, Baka-Tsuki.org. If you want to voice a character for audio light novel Log Horizon, contact me at youtubecontact22@yahoo.com. If you want to pay for your services, I can pay some money, just not a lot, and I am willing to negotiate a price. You can also volunteer if you wish. Again, just contact me at the specified email address. I'm also willing to reply to any constructive criticism, so if you have any ideas for audio light novel Log Horizon, please leave them in the comments. If you like audio light novel Log Horizon, please leave a like or a comment, as it really does motivate me to do these.